Hello and welcome into another episode of the Fantasy Football Forecast. I am your host, Trevor Scott, joined by my co-host, Matt Giraldi.
What's going on, guys?
And today we are going to be getting into the running back starts, sits, mid-tier RB2 decisions, right? So we're going to talk about 4 players in a sleeper, kind of how we would have this tier of guys ranked. We're hoping to provide some direct, in the rankings decisions with this style instead of doing start sits with who has great matchups and stuff. So hopefully this will be helpful for you, and we will get straight into it. Also, if you have not subscribed and you happen to be watching this, please hit that sub button for us. That would help us out a ton. We're trying to get to 325 in the next couple weeks here, and it would help out a small channel like ours a ton. So thank you so much for that. And now let's get into Nick Chubb.
Yeah, so with Chubb, I'm kind of quietly, cautiously optimistic, this week. We saw his first couple weeks coming back from injury. He got 65 and 35% snap share, but he got 16 and 15 carries in those games. I know he only averaged 2.9 yards per carry, but I'm going to give him a little bit of a break. That was against the Ravens and the Chargers, who both have very excellent run defenses. Now he's had a bye week to kind of get his legs under him a little bit more, get healthier. And more importantly, he goes against the Saints this week. And the Saints are about as bad as it gets at defending the run. On top of giving up the 5th most rush yards per game to opposing running backs, they've given up the most touchdowns to opposing running backs during the last month. So I think with this one, with Chubb, I do have optimism that he gets into the end zone. Obviously, he doesn't really do much work in the passing game. Winston doesn't dump it off very much either. So I'm thinking for him, 65 yards and a touchdown is kind of what I'm looking for him for this week.
Yeah, so I got some questions for you on Chubb here, because do you think Jerome Ford's return is going to matter at all? Because Ford, you got to remember, was out while Chubb was playing earlier.
Right.
Obviously, the matchups were tough and he was coming back and stuff. But now that they're out of their bye week, do you think Ford matters at all?
Not really. I mean, I think he will get mixed in. I mean, not last week, but against the Chargers, Ford had a 46% snap share. I know he only got 2 carries for 5 yards, but I think that they want to continue to, feature Chubb, and hopefully, assuming he's getting healthier, I think he's the main guy.
Yeah, I think if you had any hope that Chubb was going to get any passing game work, the fact that Ford is coming back kind of nixes that hope. Chubb didn't do that at the when he came back anyways, so I don't think that was really ever going to be in the cards. But I do think that Ford being there might take, like you mentioned, 2, maybe 5 carries away.
Sure.
And in a good matchup against the Saints, if Ford does get a drive or does get any more work than that, we might be having a different conversation next week about Nick Chubb. So I personally would be trying to sell high on Chubb, name value out of his bye week, going up in a good matchup. That would be my advice on Chubb. But let me ask a couple guys here, right? So we have James Cook against Kansas City. Would you rather play Chubb than Cook this week?
No, because obviously Kansas City's an excellent run defense, but I would still bank on Cook's role in the passing game, especially with them down Keon Coleman and potentially Amari Cooper again. So I would still roll with Cook, but I get it based on a very good versus a very bad matchup.
So what about Najee Harris? Would you play Chubb over Najee Harris going up against Baltimore?
I would actually go with Chubb. I really don't like Najee in this week. I kind of like Warren as much as Najee in this one. I don't know if that's kind of a hot take or not, but I really don't like Najee. I know they're going to continue to run the ball, even if, kind of no matter what, that's just kind of their game plan. But against Baltimore, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I'd play Warren over Najee this week.
Okay.
Passing game against Baltimore is going to be required. And Najee, we saw the passing game breakdown between Najee and Warren last week. It was all Warren. Najee got 21 carries and 0 targets. So I don't blame you for that.
And Baltimore is actually, as good as they are against the run, for whatever reason, they're not as good against passing game work from the running backs. So that's kind of why I think Warren's a sneaky good play this week.
Yeah. So, and what about Chubb versus DeAndre Swift?
Swift is tough, man. With the OC gone, I want to say they're going to try to feature him more. So I would probably go with Swift, but I don't know. Chubb feels more fun.
I mean, Swift has been so good, right? It's hard to go away from Swift and to Chubb because of how good he's been. But change in offense, how bad the Bears have looked, right? So that's kind of the range that we're trying to get at with this tier of guys, right? So I intentionally skipped 4 of the other guys we're going to get into here. So let's move on now to the next guy here, Rico Dowdle. He goes up against Houston, and I really think that Dowdle is going to take another step forward in terms of volume. I think he can be leaned on in this game. Houston is a team that's getting Nico Collins back. So, if it is going to be Houston getting out to a big lead, I hope they still would stick with Dowdle on the ground and that, he could get involved in the passing game. We have seen him on first and second down get involved quite a bit on the passing game. And without really a solid number 2 option out there, I guess Tolbert has been pretty good, but like with Cooper Rush, he's not really looking to a number 2 wide receiver. Maybe Ferguson gets involved, but hopefully they scheme up a little bit more for Dowdle in the passing game on early downs and get Cooper Rush a couple easy throws, get him into the swing of the offense, kind of try and keep that going. I'm hoping like 4 or 5 targets for Dowdle in this game that they should need to score.
Yeah, I am playing him in one league that is full PPR, so I hope he continues to grow in the passing game, which I think is kind of the silver lining this week. The problem is like the Texans are a very tough run defense, and the Cowboys are projected for the 3rd fewest points on the week, so not a great matchup overall, but I think we're seeing Zeke fade away a little bit more, and he just continues to look worse and worse, and like Cowboys are obviously out of it, so I think they should just continue to feature Dowdle as much as they can.
Yeah, and I don't think it was a surprise that the week that Zeke was inactive, they had the best rushing attack that they had in like a month. That's not an accident there, right? Like I think Dowdle is the guy, and you go and look at rankings, he's going to be down in this range, but I think it's somebody that could be a decent start and somebody who easily could finish ahead of a Swift, right? If he gets into the end zone and Swift doesn't. Moving down to the next guy that we're going to talk about here, I can't imagine you're going to have a lot of enthusiasm here, but Travis Etienne going up against Detroit.
This one's rough, man. Like last week, he had 11 rushes for 44 yards. He had only 1 catch for -1 yards. Bigsby only had 2 attempts in this game for 4 yards. I know he's kind of coming off of an injury, but man, the Jags are a 13.5-point underdog against the Lions. The Lions have an excellent run defense. I mean, look at last week. The Lions gave up 46 yards on the ground on 25 carries to Joe Mixon. And with Etienne, like I kind of dug through his stats, and his highest total yardage on the season is 86 yards, which kind of surprised me a little bit. Like I thought at least earlier in the year he would have eclipsed the 100-yard mark. But I guess the only thing you're hoping for with Etienne this week is more work in the passing game. And, if Bigsby does miss this week, I think that obviously boosts him. But, you look at last week when Bigsby had 2 rush attempts and Etienne totaled 43 yards. So I don't know, man. I just want to kind of avoid him at all costs. Like hopefully he's someone that's in like flex consideration and you can put in a wide receiver. But yeah, I just don't see a lot of silver linings with this one.
Yeah, not at all. What a fall from grace. I mean, I still can't even believe what's happening with him this year. I mean, I get that they wanted to get Bigsby going, but I didn't think that was going to be completely at the expense of Travis Etienne. And I didn't think he was just going to be terrible this year. I mean, regardless of what else is going on around him, he has been awful. And so going up against Detroit, that's not somebody I'm interested in playing. I'd look anywhere else that I possibly could, right? Jaylen Warren, at least I feel like he's got some upside to catch the passes. Etienne might as well, but really tough to trust here with him. If you roster him, you're still going to hold him. You're not cutting him or anything, but definitely lower on Etienne than I ever thought I would be this year.
And they might score 10 points in this game. Like, I don't know. I just don't see a path. And Detroit's getting better against the pass, too. And it's Mac Jones throwing the ball. Brian Thomas Jr. is clearly not fully healthy. Like, I get like Ingram will probably get some dump offs. Maybe he scores, but I just don't really see them eclipsing more than 14 points in this one. I don't know how.
No, Ingram's going to drop like a 6 for 25 or whatever it was last week again. I mean, just so brutal. Oh my gosh, this offense, like you said, with Mac Jones, they go on bye next week and Trevor Lawrence might be back after that. But yeah, this is just bleak, a very, very bleak outlook here. If your trade deadline hasn't passed and anybody will take Travis Etienne for anything, maybe explore throwing him onto the end of a deal or, take somebody else's end of bench type of players for him. I mean, that's something I'd be doing. Maybe somebody is desperate desperately trying to get off a Kareem Hunt because Pacheco's window was opened, I would trade Etienne plus a wide receiver of, maybe Christian Watson type of range guy, maybe Demario Douglas, if somebody will take those two for Kareem Hunt because they're worried that Hunt is going to just be nothing after Pacheco's back. Like, at least you get a couple weeks of production, I mean, even if you're a playoff team, I'd be looking to try and do something like that, or maybe you boost your points for, maybe you win an extra game or something. But yeah, his value to me is kind of gone. The last guy that we're going to talk about in this range of running backs is Alexander Mattison. So he's coming off a bye this week, going up against Miami, who can be had on the ground a little bit. But I will say that they got a little bit healthier. Chop Robinson, their first round pick, is looking a little better on the line, getting after the quarterback a little better. And I think that puts additional pressure just on any offense that they're going to be playing. The other thing about Mattison that's at least a question mark, and I would have been a lot more enthusiastic about him this week if the week before the bye he didn't have 9 carries and get vultured by Zamir White on the goal line and have 0 targets and 0 catches, something that he had a pretty good passing game role and pretty consistent passing game role of like 4 to 5 targets in the month before that. But I do still think that Mattison should be in that role. I think maybe it was just a one-off game. Zamir White had been doing absolutely nothing, and they gave him a little bit more work. But the passing game stuff made no sense to me. So I hope to see him get 10 to 12 carries. Zamir White in that 5 to 8 carry range and get back to his 4 targets that he should be getting each and every week.
The tough one with Mattison is kind of twofold. Like, you've got the team coming off a bye. Sometimes offenses look different after that, but after firing Luke Getsy as well, like, we don't really know what this offense is going to look like. And I guess my fear with Zamir White, and this is kind of just something I guess I'm making up in my head, I haven't heard any reports, but like, what if White was looking really good in practice this week? Like, we know he was kind of the guy heading into the season and had higher hopes for him. There's just like a lot of question marks on a bad team.
Yeah, I think so too. So I think tempering expectations if you're stuck and you have to play Mattison. I know we had a league, obviously, where he got cut going into his bye week. I had multiple leagues where he got cut going into his bye week. So there's a chance he's even just on the waiver wire. Is definitely somebody I'd be adding just in case he does look good and the role is back. But overall, not a great play this week. Not somebody that you're super confident in. The last guy we're going to talk about here is more of a sleeper pick, right? We've been kind of talking about that end of running back 2 range, and then we're going to go down the rankings a little bit more to one guy that kind of stands out as somebody that you could possibly start, and that's Tyjae Spears for the Titans going up against Minnesota. So we saw him take a 10-touch role in kind of his first healthy game in what feels like forever, and Pollard had 13, but I do think that we kind of got to look in that this might be a much more split backfield than we thought. And like 2-minute drill, he was out there, and I think quite a bit of the passing game work could be going to him in this game against Minnesota where they should be trailing. So I could see a situation where if you're desperate and you throw him in there, he ends up with 5 targets. If he catches them all for 40 yards, all of a sudden in a full PPR league anyways, even in half, that's pretty good production just in the receiving game. So if he gets a couple, if he gets 30 or 40 yards on the ground as well, could start pushing up 65, 8 to 80 total yards, something like that in this game. It's best case scenario, right? But that's kind of what we're looking for with these guys down here. I think that best case scenario is significantly better than what you're going to get from Javonte Williams or Roshan Johnson or Tyler Algier against Denver. Those are some of the guys that are ranked around Spears. So I think he stands out as the guy that's ranked really low that kind of has a path to the most upside in this week's slate of games.
I kind of view him similarly to what we talked about with Jaylen Warren, right? Where the 1A running back is going up against, a tough run defense, and the 1B is the better pass catcher. Maybe not as much in Warren's case, but potentially. But in this game, they definitely will be chasing points. So I think if he can catch 5 passes, we know he's explosive. So I do kind of like him as a flyer. I'm embarrassed to say that in a PPR league where I've got some injury and bye issues that I am starting him, so I'm kind of just sending out a prayer in this one.
Yeah, it's a good shot. I mean, I think the other name, right, that could be like a shot in the dark, it's like even more of a boom bust. I feel like Spears at least could get you 5 points, right? And he's not going to completely tank you, but the other guy that could be a shot in the dark is like a Justice Hill, right? Just hope he catches one of those touchdowns from Lamar against Pittsburgh, because he should be out there quite a bit in a game that should be pretty competitive. So. But yeah, I like the Spears in your lineup call. We got to circle back on how that ends up work it out for you at the beginning of next week. So,
Wish me
all
luck.
right, with that, thank you so much for watching again. If you're still here, please hit that subscribe button for us, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Later.